They used to know how you did it, but then it's just something about it. That comes with maturity. And maturity, he looks back on his own life. His own life says that was everybody, I'll show you guys this, has a Saul to Paul transition. That I used to be a certain way. There's a preacher friend of mine says everybody doesn't have a used to be story. And he said, you don't have a used to be story, you still being what you used to be. And I like how he puts that. And the thing is that we ought to have a used to be story. And he says, when I was a child. And there are a few things, but we'll look at this. He said the occasion of life. The occasion is not just to live life. He said, but the occasion of life is to mature and to love somebody. What point is it not to love? He said, when I was a child, he said, I spoke and thought and reasoned. He said, I spoke. He said, now look at our lives. The things I once said. There ought to be a way we used to talk. There ought to be a way we used to communicate before Christianity. You know how it is. We all have a BC before Christ. Before I met the Lord, before I got saved, before Christ, there were a whole lot of things I used to. I didn't know how to love because I had not experienced love. But once we understood that Jesus is love, and for God loved the world so much, He gave His Son, there ought to be a way that I spoke the things I once said. But then look at this. He says, not only the way I spoke, He said, I thought. He said, that's the way I once spoke. That's what I said. And He said, the way I thought. He said, what was in my head? What are the things that are in our head sometimes that keep us from having all the blessings of God? Sometimes we think the wrong things. And as a man thinking in his heart, so is he. We have to be able to start thinking on the things of God. The same Apostle Paul said, whatever is holy and righteous and all these things. He said, excellent, think on these things. And sometimes we can allow the enemy to have us thinking how we used to be. We can let the devil start having us going back. If we're not careful, we can start thinking about those old days. And let me be honest, the old days can be tempting, but God has so much more on this side. He said, look, I spoke, I thought. He said, but then reason. He said, how I was fed. There were a lot of us who were fed a certain way. And here's the thing. We talk about being fed not so much physically, but the way we were fed in our mindset. The way we were fed through the stuff we read. There are a lot of things that we read and a lot of things that we look at that's really not conducive to our maturity. I know it's revival and it's from the top to the bottom. It can be so tempting to pick up the wrong thing and read the wrong stuff. It can be very tempting to forward that bad email that you probably shouldn't forward. It can be very tempting to go to a website you probably shouldn't go to. It can be very tempting, watch this, to pick up that remote control. You got an option to watch the news or watch some news. Y'all still here? It can be very tempting. I know we got kids in the house, but I'm trying to help everybody. Because it has to, we got to learn in church. It can be very tempting. And he says he wants reason. How do you know? Do you all remember when the Apostle Paul, before he was Apostle Paul, when they were stoning Stephen in the book of Acts? And he was a young man. He wanted to join in so bad and pick up a stone and said, you're too young, just hold our coats. And he just held everybody's coats and he just wanted to say, if I can just get in there and throw a rock. That's how he reasoned. But it took that transition in order for him to grow, to be able to speak to the church of Corinth now and said there once was a way I had an oxtail mindset. He said I had a mindset where I didn't match what the Lord wanted me to live. There was a way. He was smart. He had degrees. Sat under Gamaliel. He knew the word. He knew letter. He knew law. But yet and still he didn't have Jesus Christ. There are a lot of smart people, but yet when you look at them, they're very silly and stupid if they don't have a Savior. And they don't know it yet. They don't know it because they feel as if their degrees, their education is going to get them to it. But you got to have Jesus Christ because Christ is love. When you look at this, he says, what is the occasion? The occasion in our lives is not just something we're doing just to do it. Like I told you about that reunion. That was just an occasion. But the occasion to live life is something that I have to do every day. Love is not just for Christmas. Love is not just for somebody's birthday. Love is not just, okay, well, let me go ahead and do this so he can leave me alone. That's not what love is. Here's $5. That's not love. That's just to pacify someone. But when you think about love, there's some things in our lives that we need to start moving. And love, we need to act out love on a daily basis. I ran across a story. There was a man who he held the record for keeping aquariums, and he knew about exotic fish. And he had this huge store by which people would come in all the time and they would buy sharks. And he said, do you all understand the mindset of a shark and what sharks do? Oh yeah, we just want to have some sharks in the house. They started getting money and people wanted to have sharks. So he said, okay. So he said he noticed that people would buy sharks but really didn't understand how sharks are supposed to live.